Welcome, everyone. As I mentioned in stories earlier today, we're covering questions on Ozempic. In case you aren't familiar, it's become a very popular weight loss drug. Um, Currently it's still only approved by the FDA for um, diabetes treatment because it works in the body by helping regulate insulin levels. So it makes your body release that more effectively. Someone did ask in the uh, story questions, how does it work? It mimics a naturally occurring hormone that's released when we eat and begin digestion to tell your brain that you're full. So what this then kind of triggers is it also slows digestion, which increases the amount of time it takes for the food to kind of leave your body and pass through the digestive system. So essentially, what this ultimately results in is a reduction in appetite, better portion control, and essentially getting people to consume less per day. And that's the reason why, when they were using it as a diabetes medication, they were seeing it more and more that the patients were drastically reducing weight and losing weight. And that's kind of where it started becoming the newest um, pursuit for weight loss treatments medically. Um, One thing I would say is just to be careful where you're getting it from, because since it is currently only approved as a diabetes treatment, some of the places that are saying that they have this, they're using compound pharmacies to make similar-ish variations of the GLP-1 mechanism that works in Ozempic. So you're not necessarily getting the exact same thing, and that's the reason why sometimes you can find it cheaper that way, is because it isn't truly the exact same medication. So that would be my main word of caution with it. I've seen a lot of clients, I've seen other friends, a lot of people have had great success using it. So it's not something that I would necessarily um, be adamantly against. Biggest things that I would say to be kind of thoughtful of and aware of if you're going to use this as an aid for weight loss. Um, One of the big things is you need to be doing some form of strength training and being very mindful of your protein intake when you're using this. Reason being for that is a lot of people, most people have a pretty heavy reduction in what they feel capable of eating per day. What that means is a drastic reduction in calories. And because of that, what they're finding is some people end up, you're not getting enough protein to maintain lean muscle tissue. Some are deficient in a lot of other nutrients like calcium and other aspects of that, nutrients that are very demanding for maintaining health. So muscle mass, bone density, um, all your B vitamins for energy, things of that nature. Um, so it's very important to be mindful of the quality of food choices that you're getting, because you're not going to be able to eat as much when you're using this. Um, so we want to be very, aware and focused with that, of what we're eating, when we're eating, prioritizing certain foods, because we're going to hit that full point much sooner than you would otherwise, just kind of on your own trying to restrict calories without this. Um, so we want to be mindful of what and how much we're eating. Like I said, protein and some other major minerals and vitamins for wellness and health. We want to be mindful of doing some sort of strength training. The strength training is going to help your body retain the muscle tissue. So what often happens if you're drastically reducing the amount of calories you're taking in, your body's first response to that is to start dumping metabolic tissue that requires a lot of energy to keep around. The main one being muscle tissue, because it can afford to lose that if you're not using it. It's not going to burn off organs and other things like that, but it will burn off muscle tissue if it doesn't have to use it on a regular basis. So we do that to help retain the muscle tissue. And this is important because if your body burns off too much muscle during your weight loss pursuit, you're effectively lowering your resting metabolic rate. So once you get to your weight loss goal, and this goes for really any, whether you're using Ozempic or any other method or program to get your weight down with diet or extreme cardio, if you're not doing strength training to retain the muscle tissue, your body's going to start burning a lot of that off, putting you at a lower metabolic level once you reach your weight loss goal. And what a lot of people end up struggling with is it makes it harder to keep the weight off because you have a lower metabolism than when you actually started that weight loss journey. So trying to go back to the calories that we're maintaining before means that you're at a surplus. So now you're actually putting on weight at a more accelerated level than what it was before you started. So it's something to be very mindful of in that regard. One of the other things that I would say to be mindful of, and something that I've noticed with some of the people that I know are using Ozempic or Ozempic-like treatment, is we still want to look at your habits and your relationship with food. And what I mean by that is behavioral triggers, emotional triggers. Ozempic is great in helping you be stronger in saying no if you are intentionally and purposely setting out to do so and setting out to create better habits for yourself. What it won't necessarily do is if you're stressed, you're tired, angry about something, and those have been common triggers for you to have unhealthier snacks, unhealthier food, binge eat, whatever it may be, you're still going to go towards those foods and do that if you're not consciously trying to create change in that habit and behavior relationship. Now, because of Ozempic, you won't be able to consume as much when you turn to those foods in response to those different emotional or behavioral elements. And so you'll still lose weight because of that, but we're not getting down to the deeper level of what things could we do instead to kind of break that relationship between being tired, angry, frustrated, depressed, and food. What other habits, what other actions could we take to help you process the emotion, to help you cope with the emotion without food? Ozempic can be a great aid in that, but you still have to consciously address and pursue that change. It's not going to happen automatically. And what will happen is if you don't separate those behavioral and emotional triggers, as soon as you come off of the Ozempic that's controlling the appetite, those triggers and emotional connections are still there. So we're still going towards those trigger foods. We're going towards those coping mechanisms. And now nothing's retraining our appetite anymore. So we end up right back where we started. So it's like I said, I've seen it be a very effective tool. It's just we got to be intentional when we're doing it to make sure that we're getting to the true root cause of what essentially kind of got us in a little bit of trouble to begin with. That way we don't end up back there again as soon as we come off the Ozempic. I do encourage, if you are using it, that you are looking at something to have a plan of, okay, we're going to use this to get to here, then we're going to do this to come off of it strategy. Because most of these, especially right now, are fairly expensive and you don't want to feel stuck on it forever. Is one of the concerns that I kind of have right now. Not very many medical practitioners that I've seen so far are helping their patients create plans of that nature of, we're going to use it for this long, you're going to work on these habits, these behavioral triggers, we're going to prioritize this with your nutrition, and then when you get to your weight loss goal, this is our plan of action on coming off of this. Um, so that would be one of the other things to kind of keep in mind when you're pursuing this. If no one's having that discussion with you, either connect them, if you're going to a practitioner that's doing that, they're not having that discussion, I would love to meet that practitioner, so we can work together to get a plan for you for that in mind. Because I've seen a few people kind of feel afraid to come off of it because they don't trust themselves to not make the right choices without it. And that's an unfortunate position to be in, because that starts getting us into the aspects of chemical dependency and things of that nature that I don't think the medical community, when they started pushing it for a weight loss drug, completely thought about for the long-term effects with that. That's my personal opinion on it. I'm not a medical professional. I can't give medical advice, but I can help you in the habit and behavioral standpoint and start creating better habits for you to set you up for success long term if you choose to use something like this, or even if you choose not to use something like this. If you have not looked into it yet, it doesn't mean that you have to immediately go out and get it or anything, because I've seen some people struggle with severe side effects. The nausea has been a common complaint that I've seen, to the point where some people just couldn't continue with it. I've seen others where that has not been as much of a fact, but um, there's also some other factors, again, going into the nutrient deficiencies and things, because we're not able to get enough in if we're not prioritizing the right food. So nutrient deficiencies is the next big concern there, that I've seen with it. Another factor is because of the way that this works, it makes your body start taking fat from everywhere. There's a term kind of going around called Ozempic face, because it will actually have your body pulling fat from different parts of your body, in your face, your hands, areas that are meant to have some fat and padding, um, unless you get like extremely lean, but it's tapping into these fat reserves before then for people. So you get a lot of very kind of gaunt looks. Some people just don't have enough, pads of fat in their hands or their feet anymore. That is impacting people differently across the board, but it is something that's being mentioned more and more. Especially, I would say you're going to see that more in people who are using it that don't really have a substantial enough amount of weight to truly need to be on it. If you're not truly, medical term is morbidly obese, if you're not in that level and you're using it, it's going to potentially start pulling fat from those other areas, is one of the concerns that I've seen pop up more and more. I don't see any other questions that have popped up. I hope I've answered as much as I can. Again, just preface again, or I guess suffix, since we're at the end of this. Again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a doctor. I can't give medical advice. Everything is my thoughts and opinions based upon my experience in health, fitness, and weight loss from a personal training perspective. If you have more questions, or you have questions that you'd rather not air publicly in the chat box, feel free to message me. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Whether you're thinking about starting it, have already started it, and some of the things that I've mentioned to be aware of are kind of perking up as, oh, no one's talked to me about that. Happy to have a conversation. I'm also happy to answer any other questions that you have, that you don't necessarily want to put in the public chat. that is okay. You can private message us. Happy to talk with you in a more private one-on-one format. I hope that was informative for everyone. If you do have questions and you don't care about it being private, you can always throw them in the chat if you're watching the replay, and we will do any follow-up questions next week if needed, or we'll move on to another topic next week. Hope everyone has a wonderful week. And just remember to stay consistent in your persistent pursuit of health.